The biggest risk in human and AI teaming is not that the model is wrong. It is that the human and the model slip into the wrong mode together at the worst moment. Most deployments today are still simple interface-mediated hybrids. A person asks, the system drafts, summarizes, searches, classifies, and proposes. The person then approves, edits, or rejects. That sounds ordinary, but it hides a crucial point for leaders. Performance comes less from raw model capability and more from how agency is designed into the workflow. The same model can produce disciplined decisions in one institution and costly drift in another, because the surrounding roles, incentives, and review habits differ. A useful way to think about these systems is as co-reasoning loops. The human is not just using a tool. The human is entering a feedback circuit that reshapes attention, confidence, and even what feels like common sense. Over time, these hybrids start to act like mirrors. They reflect your categories back at you. They standardize certain framings, and they quietly penalize others. When a model answers quickly and fluently, teams may begin to treat fluency as evidence, even when evidence is thin. That is how institutional habits get rewritten, without any policy memo. So one high-impact finding is that evaluation must move up a level. You cannot only score the model's outputs. You have to evaluate cognition-level effects, like reflection, interpretation, and mode switching. Does the workflow prompt the user to reconsider assumptions? Does it create space for skepticism? Does it encourage comparison, or does it push towards single-pass acceptance? In other words, does it preserve critical agency? Critical agency is the ability to actively evaluate, doubt, and revise, even when the system sounds confident. Research using co-creative settings, like human and AI collaboration in digital art, treats these environments as early warning labs that might sound far from infrastructure, defense, or capital allocation. Yet co-creation exposes the same underlying dynamics you will see everywhere else. Who is the author of the decision? Who is responsible for the revision history? What gets recorded and what gets forgotten? When teams stop tracking revisions or stop generating alternatives, agency erodes. The output might still look good, but the organization becomes easier to steer, by accident or by design. Another major insight is that reasoning stability should be treated like a dynamical systems problem. In plain language, the coupled human and AI system can jump between states. Under time pressure, ambiguity, or conflicting evidence, you can see abrupt mode switching. A team can move from careful deliberation to autopilot, or from skepticism to deference, or from measured risk management to narrative lock-in, shifting from cautious uncertainty to confident fabrication, depending on prompts, context, and internal dynamics. What matters is that instability is not just an individual failure. It can be a property of the loop itself. If the interface rewards speed over verification, the loop will tend to amplify speed. If the workflow lacks clear escalation triggers, the loop will tend to keep flowing, even when it should stop. Leaders should hear reasoning stability the way engineers hear control stability. You test it under stress, you look for discontinuities, and you design damping mechanisms before deployment. Now consider a different frontier problem: distributed hybrid cognition across cloud and edge systems. In these environments, intelligence becomes amorphous. There is no single node that holds the full picture. Each node has partial views, delayed updates, and its own failure modes. The dangerous illusion here is false centralization. That is when an organization behaves as if there is one authoritative answer, when the system is structurally incapable of providing it. In an amorphous setup, contradictions are not bugs, they are normal. Sensors disagree, models disagree, data is stale in one place and fresh in another. If you do not build reconciliation and provenance into the system, the institution will invent authority ad hoc. Someone will pick the most convenient output, or the most legible dashboard, and call it truth. Over time, that creates competing truth regimes inside the same organization, and eventually across organizations. For planners, this is not a software nuance. It is a governance risk that scales with deployment. That leads to a fourth finding, which is architectural. Purely neural end-to-end generation often struggles when you need explicit structure, control, and interpretability. High reliability settings want constraint satisfaction, traceability, and compositional reasoning. That is why hybrid neuro-symbolic approaches, sometimes framed as synthetic reasoning, keep resurfacing. The idea is not to replace neural models, it is to wrap them in structures that enforce rules, expose decision paths, and make behavior legible to auditors and operators. This has a capital allocation implication. If your strategy assumes that buying model access is the main spend, you will underinvest in what actually makes hybrid cognition safe and durable. The hard work sits in the integration layer. Identity, permissions, retrieval, audit logs, approval workflows, and evaluation harnesses. Those are the parts that make authority visible and mistakes recoverable. A fifth and very practical insight is that authority transfer has to be accountable, not implicit. Many organizations drift into automation by convenience. An AI suggestion becomes an AI recommendation. A recommendation becomes a default. That is brittle authority transfer, and it fails quietly until it fails catastrophically. Instead, institutions need an explicit operating model for hybrid cognition. Define which decisions may be machine-proposed, which may be machine-recommended, and which, if any, may be machine-executed. Pair each category with escalation paths, review surfaces, and a named owner of go or no-go authority. Make the boundary legible in the system itself, not just in a policy document. Stability testing should become a release criterion, not an afterthought. Run scenario-based evaluations under urgency, ambiguity, and conflicting evidence. Look for mode switching, both in the model and in the human team. If performance collapses exactly when stakes rise, you do not have a decision system, you have a persuasion system. Agency-preserving design should also be operational, not rhetorical. Require counter-arguments, require independent alternatives, require revision tracking that shows what changed and who changed it. When severity rises above a threshold, force structured dissent, or alternate model comparison, or independent human review. They are the equivalent of redundancy and circuit breakers in critical infrastructure. Finally, keep the longer horizon in view without overhyping neural interfaces. High-bandwidth neural-mediated reasoning, where abstract concepts flow smoothly between cortex and external compute, remains speculative. What is immediate and already compounding is mediated coupling through ordinary interfaces. Text and multimodal tools are enough to reshape institutions, because they reshape how people think together. If you remember one line, make it this: the winning advantage will not be the smartest model, it will be the most governable co-reasoning loop.